I am so like defeated reading this story from Entertainment Weekly.
69.
This is just now.
Yeah.
Other outlets have written about this. They've taken the but from Entertainment Weekly. I'll put the story up. But Alan, you have the
I'll just get to it.
Quotes. Let me just get the headline here. Fantastic Four to explore gender roles. Here's the cast. Not in character. The cast of the Fantastic Four, and from Entertainment Weekly. What did they say in this article, please? This is not. I have thoughts about this because I've heard the quotes.
Okay, I'm just going to jump to it. So regarding Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, this is Vanessa Kirby speaking. From her earliest appearance in Fantastic Four in number 1 in 1961, Sue was often relegated to a passive role, dubbed Invisible Girl. Her powers limited her and her character largely defined by her relationship with the men around her. But Kirby and director Mark Shackman set out to redefine Sue, honoring her roots while updating her for today's audiences. This is the quote, if you played an exact 60s Sue today, everyone would think she was a bit of a doormat, Kirby acknowledges. Instead, First Steps gives Sue agency, gravitas, and inner conflict, showcasing her as a woman of profound emotional intelligence and personal power. Shackman calls her the most emotionally intelligent person on the planet, and it's through that lens that Sue becomes a political and personal leader. You want to comment about this first before we go?
Yeah, let me comment on that. We'll get to Johnny Storm in a second. I think she's hangs around people who think this way. I know that there's certain groups of people that have these ideas all floating around, so they parrot them and repeat them in interviews. I don't have that much problem with what she said. I mean, I remember reading FF Comics where Sue Storm had her outfit on and an apron and brought in cake or dinner for the rest of the team. So I don't mind updating that aspect. I am told from someone who has seen Fantastic Four that don't mess with Sue Storm. She's very powerful in a female action hero vein that could be compared to Sigourney Weaver in Alien or Aliens. That she is very strong, but not in a girl boss way, in the kind of strong woman that I think that we've actually liked in movies, not the girl boss where she can do no wrong, but like a badass in a good way. So I don't know. I don't have as much of a problem because those early FF comics, while I love them, yeah, they're kind of set in they're a reflection of that era. But it would be cool to see someone do a cosplay with a Sue Storm costume, wearing an apron, carrying a birthday cake, but with that hair that goes like Mad Men kind of style, like a bouffant, like early 60s. I'd love to see that. What else is in the article now? I know it gets a little dicier here.
All right, so we're going to move on to Johnny Storm. Johnny Storm, Human Torch, updated as a self-aware, complex hothead. In past portrayals, like Chris Evans in the 2005 film or Michael B. Jordan in the 2015 reboot, Johnny was the cocky, adrenaline junkie showboat. All charm, jokes, and ego. He was often comic relief or the bad boy trying to grow up. Joseph Quinn's Johnny still has that spark, but it's more of a melancholic and reflective. This is the quote, he was branded as this womanizer, devil-may-care guy, but is that sexy these days? I don't think so. The version of Johnny is less callous with other people's feelings in mind.
I have some really specific thoughts about this. This is a terrible idea. Let me tell you why. Because it doesn't give any of the characters a character journey, a moment. Okay, the reason Han Solo is a badass is because he begins as a scoundrel, and in the end, he's all about the money. doesn't care about the princess, whatever. He takes his money, he's flying away. In the end, he does the right thing. He protects his friend Luke, who then can finish his journey to destroy the Death Star. If a character starts out perfect and evolved Johnny Storm, that is not interesting. If a character begins as Tony Stark, is a womanizer, a boozer, a cocky narcissist, and evolves into a good father who cares more about others than himself, that's a journey. It took 10 years for RDJ to complete that journey, approximately. Someone do the math. But if a character begins perfect, there's nowhere for them to grow. And they don't even have to grow. They can have a moment of Johnny being less of an a-hole than he is. That's what makes his rivalry with the Thing. He treats Ben like a brother. They harass each other. He's a jackass and a womanizer. Maybe he actually begins to care for a woman, and it's out of character. If you begin being evolved and perfect, you're boring. You're fucking boring. And this is Hollywood, has no subtlety, no like nuance, and like just nothing beneath the surface. It's got to be they're all perfect and great at the beginning, and then nothing happens. They don't grow. Boring. Alan, what do you think about this? So all I have, like, Sue, I definitely get that. But these comments on Johnny Storm are wrong-headed, and I'm still cautiously optimistic. But I also think that in many ways, these actors pander to the outlets they speak to. So take these comments with a grain of salt. Your comments, Alan, I want to hear it.
Why is this bad storytelling? It's the idea of the fatal flaw. Characters can't be perfect. You just mentioned it. You know, we want to see Sue's journey to become the person she is. We want to see Johnny's journey to become the person he is. Why? Because we can relate to that. You know, we've all been the womanizer in the past. We've all been the person with no voice. We've all been there. And why movies are great is because someone else has been there too. They wrote that story, and we can go along with that story. That's what connects us with characters, with storylines, with plot lines. But when you jump to the end and say, hey, they're perfect now, and not even give a hint that, you know, that their flaws inform their ways of making decisions, doing certain actions, that's when these characters become boring and bland. And that's my fear of what is happening here. Is you need to have some kind of a fatal flaw for these characters. Captain Marvel never had a fatal flaw. That's why it failed. When you use the word girl boss, these characters don't have fatal flaws. They're just super awesome already. Rey didn't have a fatal flaw. She was super awesome all the way through. And people just can't relate to that.
And they have to deal with these dumb men who keep them from being the most awesome version of themselves. But wait, what you said earlier, please. You said we've all been womanizers. Were you a womanizer, Alan, in your early days, pre-marriage?
Okay, sorry. Chris, you are always a womanizer.
No. Years ago.
Well, the thing is, we've all had bad takes in life. Look, this last week for me, on last few days on X have been my bad takes, and getting called out on them. We've all had bad takes. We all learn from these journeys and these adventures. I mean, quite frankly, the story that stands out to me with Johnny Storm was this was the John Byrne run, but Johnny fell in love with this really hot woman, Frankie Ray, and she becomes Galactus's herald and lost forever. And I'm like, oh, Johnny, you lost a good one. And you know, it's those things those little storylines, those things that we can relate to, that connects us with those comic characters, connects us with the stories and the journeys they go on. And that's why they never become the perfect person at the end, and why they should never become the perfect person at the end. Because then we can't relate to them.
They have shades of doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're flawed. Flawed characters are interesting. Perfect characters that do everything perfect are boring. And you could see Johnny being a womanizer, and then the two women he's dating kind of meet, and then he's caught, and then he has accountability. It doesn't mean they can't be accountable for bad behavior. Being accountable for bad behavior and learning lessons is part of life. That's why I thought She-Hulk was interesting at the beginning of the series, because what a bitch. What a narcissistic, self-centered bitch that could have grown, but no, she didn't. And neither, I mean,
she got
also,
worse.
by the way, look up another comic where Johnny Storm, there's like a multiverse version of Johnny called Guard, spelled Gaard, that is Johnny Storm wearing a hockey costume. Make of that what you will. I didn't like when they changed Johnny Storm's costume to a red costume. I thought that looked lame.
Well, I didn't like when they made Iceman gay, but
well, I didn't like that either. I thought, what's the point? That was a self-insert by Bryan Singer, if you ask me. But make of that what you will.
No, that was early X-Men, wasn't it? I mean, no, I'm sorry, all new X-Men. In the last run,
I felt he really pushed that character. So
okay,
whatever. In any case, I'm still cautiously optimistic. I hope they're just pandering to the media, but these quotes are not going to help the movie.
Yeah.
So
let me give you my last thought. Stop these press tours. Just let the movie speak for itself. Don't let your actors say things. Because that's the problem, is they're tainting the movie.
Right.
And, just put the movie out. Stop. Yeah, save yourself some money. Stop the press tour.
Yeah, and I'll just say, to sum up, actors are dumb. They should not be doing interviews or having original thoughts. And my experience of actors, they have no original thoughts. They parrot things they hear from others, and they're surrounded by morons, and they're just repeating what they hear.
Well, the definition of an actor is someone who pretends to be a normal person.
And you would know, you work with actors.
Oh, yeah.